And a good Sunday morning to you. Thank you for watching Beyond the Headlines. Well, after months of going back and forth, the United ISD Board of Trustees made it official. The board voted to finalize the termination of its superintendent. This past week marked the end of David Gonzalez's employment with the school district. This comes after Gonzalez was placed on leave with pay in August following allegations of ongoing sexual harassment and retaliation in the past against a district employee. Wednesday's vote marked the end of a long process where one board member reveals the moment leading up to the decision, while the party affected shares their frustration.
We had a presentation from our attorneys out of Houston that had handled the part of the process of the appeal for Mr. Gonzalez, and they did a 10-minute presentation, and then we had a deliberation with legal counsel, and we had the action to go ahead and accept the recommendation of the independent hearing examiner. And then we had a second item to officially terminate the contract of Mr. David Gonzalez.
We were very disappointed with the results of the hearing. The hearing examiner ignored a large swath of evidence that showed the board was not acting in good faith, and the hearing examiner did not even mention any of those pieces of evidence in his opinion.
And that's where we begin discussion this morning as we welcome to the Beyond the Headlines panel, Javier Montemayor, UISD board member. Javier, thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Also joining us, KGNS political contributor Sergio Mora.
Good morning.
KGNS anchor and investigative reporter Mindy Caso, and KGNS general manager Luis Villarreal. Thanks.
General Villarreal.
General Villarreal. All right, Javier, I'm going to start with the big picture, and then I'll let everybody else pick. Let's look at the big picture. What happens now moving forward from the district, for the district after this lengthy process?
So the board now has to make probably the most important decision that it's had to make in quite some time. Other than the termination of the superintendent, we now have to pick a new leader. And so the board has several options. We can pick somebody tomorrow, after a special call meeting, or we can accept resumes or proposals, qualifications, if you will, and go through the process, just like we've done in the past. I think the board is geared up for a process, bring in some qualifications, some qualified people, qualified candidates, interview them, and then make a selection. So that helps with the transparency. It gives the public an opportunity to comment, opportunity to see what we're looking at, and it gives them an opportunity to participate in the process as well. So that's the new, or that's what's coming down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So
we've been hearing that. Well, first of all, y'all made a decision to leave the 3 administrators in charge until the end of the school year. Is that just to kind of keep the status quo?
Yes. So the administrators in charge have different levels of expertise. They all are cross-trained, if you will. But we've got Mike Garza, who's been a director of operations, associate superintendent for quite some time. Handles a lot of our operational activities throughout the district, facilities, police department, athletics, human resources. We've got Rebecca Morales, who is an experienced principal, experienced at the campus level, an experienced administrator in federal programs and grants, has a very vast knowledge of instruction and academics. And then we have Laida Benavides, who is our CFO, handles the finances of the district. So those 3, it's kind of more of a checks and balances kind of a situation, and actually it's working pretty good. I've talked to a lot of our staff, our administrators, and they're very comfortable with that.
Javier, are in this current administration of the trifecta or whatever we want to call it, are they reporting directly to the board then, each
Yes.
individual?
All 3 of them are working in unity.
In unity?
And they are meeting with the board, advising us of situations. The communication's actually been pretty good between all 3 of them. They're able to handle situations and bounce ideas off. They're doing a very good job, all 3 of them.
And is there, and I know Mindy already alluded to it, but any possibility that it is a permanent situation that you can consider, or is there a need to have
The one.
one leader? This is actually, if we go back to our conversations with our attorneys and their communications with the Texas Education Agency, this is something that's quite unheard of. Most, if not all,
Sure.
school districts have one leader, one superintendent. I believe that's probably where we're going to go.
Right.
And so with that, I anticipate this process starting sometime in early April, May, as soon as the school year starts to wind down.
Wow.
I wanted to ask you, my question, because in case you guys run into the same situation, I was looking over the report, and there was allegations against Mr. Gonzalez in 2011 and 2017. Why did the board hire him to begin with if they knew of these allegations? And how are you going to prevent that in the future? Because you had this scandal, and it's pretty evident in the report. Everybody, all the board members are like, this is a huge black eye on the district. We can't let it happen again. You have the cleaning contract scandal that was obviously a huge black eye, FBI, the whole 9 yards. How are you going to prevent this from happening again? Are you going to do a nationwide search? Are you going to bring in someone from the outside like the city did, which is working very well? Because, I mean, ultimately, are we going to be in the same situation over and over again?
I hope not. I was not one of the votes in favor of Mr. Gonzalez when he first came on board. But going back to your first question, the 2011, 2013, 14 investigations, these allegations that came up were 2021, these recordings. And what happens is because of I guess of Mr. Gonzalez's position, a lot of these people weren't really too enthusiastic about coming forward. And so it took them a while before they were able to muster the courage and come forward. Mind you, we have potential victims out there who it took them a long time before they were able to come and put their name out there. If you look at the reports, if you look at all the blast over social media, their names are thrown out there. So it takes a while before it takes a lot of courage before somebody can do that. So when that allegation came out, it opened up the entire historical review of Mr. Gonzalez's file, brought out issues that weren't really perhaps fully investigated. We had to hire an independent firm to conduct an investigation of these allegations, and it brought out issues that weren't touched, issues that weren't brought out or resolved back in that time period. And in the interview process with Mr. Gonzalez, those questions were asked. And, again, we go back, I think to answer your question in 2 words, full disclosure. Full disclosure is important. It's an issue of integrity. It's an issue that the board needs to have with regards to trust in their leader. We're partners in this. And so, UISD is not a small business. It's 6,000 employees, 40,000 students, 80,000 parents. And something like this happens, it's impactful to our community.
I had a question about going back to the examiner's report. There's a lot of things in that report that seem to be a little bit of a red flag as far as the culture there. As a board, are you going to be looking or dissecting some of the things that were reported there, thinking, maybe we need to address this, and I go specifically, there's a lot of specifics, but one of the things that stood out was what happened with the former assistant superintendent for HR, David Garcia. We all reported that he retired, that was the communication that we received. He retired and moved on. Now come to find out, he might have been asked to leave because of, once again, allegations of inappropriate conduct. Were some of these things that were brought out in this report kind of like aha moments? We have issues going on there.
It was. It has been, I think, for the entire board. I can't speak for the entire board, but I can certainly, my takeaway from our meetings has been that, it has opened our eyes. But I think this situation has given a lot of people the understanding that, hey, we can come forward, we can disclose, we can talk about this. We we're not scared to bring this out. And it also, if you're engaged in some type of this inappropriate conduct, let it stop. I think this decision from this hearing examiner, this whole process has been a lesson for the board, for our leadership, and the people in position of power that they not.
Yeah, I don't envy the position that you or the board is in at this point, because unfortunately, the pendulum sometimes swings too far.
Of course.
And you still, we still live in a country and in a community where you're innocent until proven guilty, and you have to go through the process of investigating. And so people sometimes say, well, why is it taking so long? Is the risk of damaging an innocent person's life is too great, right? And the board being in that position is obviously, it can be very difficult. So, but obviously those things need to be addressed.
Well, I will say this about that process. In any private sector, the termination process would have been a lot shorter. I'm very sure about that, especially with these kinds of allegations.
Sure.
In the public sector, with the way the Texas Education Code is written, it protects our employees. It protects contract employees. And as part of the contract, you've got due process. You've got investigations, and especially in this kind of position where you've got a superintendent, the high profile position, the highest profile position in our district. So we have to go through that process, and if that employee elects to challenge it or appeal it, that's what's taken us from August to February because of that process.
I've got a final question. Ultimately, it's about the children. There's been a lot of parents making public comments that are upset, and after everything that's happened, your message to the parents moving forward.
Well, look, I had a late uncle, Mr. Abraham Rodriguez, who told me a long time ago before I ran, he says, take care of the children first. Everything will fall into place after that. We're looking for a superintendent that is going to take care of our children, that is going to work hard to educate and get our children the best education possible. Everything else will fall into place after that. The money, the athletics, the transportation, everything else falls into place. We're looking for a leader, a good leader, somebody who's going to be a positive role model for our community and for our children.
Sounds good. Javier, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Javier.
Well, when we come back, tag You're It. It's not the childhood game we know and love, but it's the patriotic duty we know we love to say we do, voting. We'll explain that special message after the break, and we'll recap the first week where your vote starts to count. That's next. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. It's finally here. The first votes of the 2024 election cycle have been cast. This past week, at the first week of early voting, thousands of Webb County voters cast their ballots for their preferred candidate in the March primary elections. All around town, it's no secret, on just about every busy corner, enthusiastic supporters hold up signs, chant names, and cajole those passing by to make it into the voting booth. Although Webb County has historically had low turnout, we're hoping that trend doesn't continue. Instead, we're hoping it catches on, almost like a game, you know? Tag, you're next.
Tag, you're next.
Tag, you're next. Election season is upon us. That means it's time to vote.
Whether you vote Democrat
Or Republican,
it doesn't matter. What matters is that you vote.
this election, let your voice be heard.
This election, make sure to vote.
A couple of things. My mic on? All right, a couple of things here. I don't think I've ever used the word cajole in a newscast. That's the first. Secondly, that's Mindy's directorial debut on that problem.
That was nice.
Yeah.
I want to vote now.
And full disclosure, I wear these glasses and they're what you call transitions or whatever. I didn't realize
When you
that
go
they had
outside.
turned, I was outside and they turned black, so I was not trying to.
Oh, that's what
To
you
look
get
like
for
Men in
trying to be
Black?
hip.
Yeah, so sorry. Apologize for that.
Another election cycle, and I don't know. Are we expecting any better this time around, or is the voter apathy going to continue in Webb County?
Well, you know, we were talking a little bit in the commercial break how many people have come out and vote. I've been impressed with how many people have actually voted. There's about maybe 2,000 a day that are coming out. I know that the elections office was hoping for about 30,000 during the early voting period. I think if we continue with the way we're going so far, we could possibly hit that. The other thing that when we were, I know that we've all voted.
Not yet.
You haven't voted?
No, I
Ruben
have.
Okay, he and I have voted, and then when we were there doing the public service announcement, I was impressed with how they are thinking out of the box now and making voting a little bit easier. You've got curbside voting now for those that find themselves a little difficult for mobility issues. Also, if you are an elderly person and it's hard for you to stand for long periods of time and there's a line, you can request from the judge to be put in the front of the line. And if they see that, yes, definitely, you need a little assistance, they'll move you to the front of the line. So I think that they're trying to make voting easier.
Yeah, and this first week, the polls, for some reason, and it happens every year, and it happens nowhere else in Texas, the first week of early voting, the polling sites close at 5 p.m., which makes it very difficult for people to get there and vote. Hopefully next week it'll pick up when they close at 8.
Yeah.
I think that it should be 8 o'clock both weeks, which makes complete sense because people get out of work at 5, and that's when they have the time to go vote. Also, we don't have a big top of the ticket races in terms of there's no presidential primaries going on. Biden is unopposed. Trump is pretty much unopposed. In the Democratic side, we only have the U.S. Senate race to see who's going to run against Ted Cruz, but it hasn't garnered the attention that, for example, Beto would generate. You have Roland Gutierrez and Colin Allred. It has generated interest, but not as much to really boost out the turnout. So you just have the local races that are driving turnout, and there's some
Mainly
really,
the sheriff's race is
mainly the
one
sheriff's
that is
race.
driving most of the traffic.
Definitely.
Hey, Sergio, let me stop you right there because I have a question for you. These are party elections.
Correct, yes.
Do the parties pay the county
Yes.
for this service of the votes,
Correct.
of collecting and running the election?
Yeah, they subcontract with the elections office, and they literally, the party chairs show up with a big check that they get from the state.
And in our county, do both parties show up with the same type of check? Or is it based on their number of votes that they are expecting to process? Because obviously you pick, are you going to use the Democratic ballot or the Republican
I
ballot?
think it's the same because ultimately you need to staff all the polling sites, and obviously that's what.
So this is
that's
not a
what counts.
county expense. I guess that's what I'm getting.
No, this is
It
not
is
a county.
subsidized by the political parties.
That is correct. Yeah,
You know,
they just hire the elections office.
I do want to mention something that you just said, Luis. When we were there filming, one of the election judges was saying that some folks are getting a little upset because they're being asked, which party are you, Democrat or Republican? And we do want to note that
They're not asking which party are you. They're asking you which ballot do you want.
Exactly. So just to clear that for our viewers out there, that you're being asked which ballot that you want, because it is a party vote. So it's not that the judges are trying to be intrusive or nosy or anything that teaches. They need to know which ballot
I
to
found
give
it
you.
odd that when they asked me that question, they said, you don't have to say it, you can just point.
Okay. You want D or you want an
And
R?
I guess, and I found that out. I was like, well, why would you say that? But then I realized maybe they don't, you may feel uncomfortable saying that. Hey,
20 years ago, that wouldn't have mattered. Now, if you say it out loud that you're Democrat or Republican, you open yourself up to chastisement. I think that is different. 20 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered if you were Republican or Democrat. Now, because you can no
need to
longer
stop
say
hitting the
anything-
desk.
Because now every time you say anything out loud, you're afraid.
Which
Looking
ballot
over
do
your
you want,
shoulder.
sir?
Exactly. First you look around and see who's watching, and then that one, because we're afraid of what people are going to say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But you're okay, right?
I'm all right. Other than that, I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, and we also want to mention that when this show airs, of course, it's Sunday when it airs. So you're right, Sergio, the hours of operation for voting is from 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. So it is 8 to 8.
Yeah.
Today on Sunday, when the show airs, it is 12 noon to 6. So 12 noon to 6, 8 to 8.
But part of the reason why why I asked you the question as to who was running the elect. Whose decision is it then to keep it open till 5? Is that up to the Webb County Elections Office, or are the parties the ones that tell them we need you to be open from this time to this time?
There's
I
a
think that
special
matters.
committee. There's a special committee that's comprised of the county judge, the two county chairs, the Republican and the Democrat, and I think it's like the tax assessor and some other position, the county clerk, one of the two positions, and they meet.
Because I assume the process would cost more the
If you
longer
stay
you're
open till
open,
8,
right?
'cause
So
you're paying
are you
more.
willing to pay me more so I can stay open till 7?
Yeah, but
Or 8.
now
Or
you
8 or
have
9
now
or
you
10.
have a whole bunch of early voting sites, which is great.
Yeah.
But
12.
then you limit it by closing it at 5.
Well, I
It's
understand.
self-defeating.
I'm not disputing whether it's right or wrong to
Yeah.
close it. I'm saying whose decision is it? Because you make it, and maybe I'm not understanding you, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but you make it seem like it's a deliberate effort to
I'm not saying it's
affect voting.
I'm not saying it's
and
deliberate.
if it is, then who's doing it?
I'm not saying it's deliberate, but it definitely hurts your turnout if the hours of operation aren't
so
accessible
maybe the
to
party
majority of
chairs
the population.
need to get together and say, okay, we're going to pay you more.
All right.
Well,
gotta-
yeah, I
gotta
think
stop it.
They're
When we
running
come
us
back,
off.
it's the one thing our panelists cannot stop thinking about. Time for the one thing our panelists cannot stop thinking about. Welcome back, Sergio.
Well, speaking about elections, I think that something really nice happened in the city of Saint-Port, France. I hope I said it right. And basically, they voted in a referendum to ban scrolling with their smartphones while I'm doing it. They ban adults and children from scrolling on their devices while walking down the street, sitting with others on the park bench, shops, cafes, or eating in restaurants, or while they wait for.
So you can be looking at it, but you can't be scrolling?
You can't be scrolling. You'll
I
get
see.
fined. So I
Wow.
just thought that, great. I hope
Okay.
it works out for them.
Start somewhere, right? I mean, all right, Mindy.
Sounds good. Well, my one thing, I just need to give a really big shout out to everybody who went out to the parade, the participants who were on the float, who braved the really cold conditions, and then, of course, our team here at KGNS. There were a lot of challenges last weekend. The weather did not work in our favor, and there were a lot of last-minute entries that dropped out, and of course, you know, the weather just played a big role. But knowing all of that, the folks who participated, the crew who still put it on air, just congratulations to everybody, and thank you to everybody who participated. Oh, and there is Rick. He is our morning photographer. He also plays in the Jolly Ranchers, so there he is right there. We had a great time, and we always enjoy being able to broadcast it, so we appreciate the viewers who appreciate us for that.
Well, speaking of broadcasting, I ran into a clip.
That's what I thought I saw.
Oh my God.
Fridays at 8:50 in the morning and 6:15 p.m. right here on Q 106 Hot Hits.
And Laredo's country, Y95.
So that
that
goes back to the day. That's Ruben and Sam Almanza, but you know, I thought I was going to come out on this thing, but this takes us back what? This is 90,
You're talking about 96,
96,
95.
97?
What was the last time the Cowboys won a
That's
Super Bowl? No?
1996.
Wow.
Yeah,
Do you have
that's
hair
in 19. Look at the
I
mustache.
do. I'm wearing
Look at the mustache.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'm speechless, frankly.
Wow.
We did a country show.
We
that
did.
I don't think it ever aired.
Never.
We filmed it at the Roundup.
Yeah.
Luis and I, known as the Monkey back then, we filmed a country show, but it just never made it. To
It never
air.
made it. It never
It ended on the
we were-
editing floor.
Yeah, the pilot never made it to air.
The pilot wasn't picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really want to do my one thing now. I think that was good for the one thing. Sergio, you can have another minute.
Oh,
if
come
you'd
on, man.
like.
You have to.
All right, let me just talk about this. This is NASA's thing. They are looking for volunteers to live in a simulated one-year mission to Mars that's actually here on the ground. You have to commit to the year, obviously. The mission includes volunteer crew members living and working inside a 1,700 square foot habitat at NASA's Houston Space Center. The tasks include simulated spacewalks, robotic operations, habitat, whatever. It's a year. You got to donate a year of your life. And then we found out you have to have a master's degree.
Oh, wow.
To
I
actually
was
volunteer.
really happy until you said that. I don't have a
Yeah, no. Thank you all very much, and thank you for watching. Have a blessed rest of your day.
Go vote.